Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Oh,
Hey, well, first off, let me say that it's an honor to be here. I have met so many nice people here in just a few minutes that I was here, and I know that you have an area here where you support something that's good with this museum, and you're all here today. And like I say, I have never been in this area, but at my age, it's good for me to be just anywhere. And let me say that I had a luncheon here, and usually whenever I eat pretty well like that, I usually take a nap. If you start dozing off, well, then that's fine. I understand it. But anyway, I'll start off by going back to my basic training and let you know a little bit about that and get some of the highlights of what happened along the way. My name is Guy Prestia, and I was born in a place called Burnstown, part of Ellwood City. And it's just a small community there. And I was born in 1922, April of 26, and I grew up during the Depression days. So today I am 97 years old.
Wow.
And it's good to be up around it. Like the one gentleman asked me, do I go to different places? And I've been to about maybe 18 or 20 different schools over my area here when I started. When we first came home from the service, none of us even spoke about it, even to our own families. We didn't know that. I wondered about it, so I made out a survey and wanted to find out what the problem was. Well, in World War II, there were 18 million people involved in that war. Whenever you count the soldiers, you count the WACs, you count the waves, you count the nurses, the pilots, and all those people, there were 18 million. So when we come out from there, everybody went back to their own families or their own jobs and just carried on. When I come out of the service there, I didn't even get to see a doctor. Today they operate things a little different. When people come home from Iraq, and I'm glad to see that, a lot of people get that post-traumatic stress and one thing and another, but they get checked over and they get to the place where they can get help. And but when we come home, we just didn't have that. And it's the same thing, and I'll mention this because with the club that I belong to, the Breakfast Club out of Pittsburgh, we see a lot of Vietnam veterans coming there. And it's a good thing because for a good many years they got a bad rap. They got no respect in that war, whether it was because it was unpopular or whether it lasted too long when it went on for 12, 15 years. What happened then, but they got no respect. Now they're getting the respect that they deserve. The way I look at it, when you're in the service, and especially if you go in a place of danger and you're in a place of combat, you deserve your respect, no matter what branch of the service. And so I got my basic training. I got drafted in 1942. Then my basic training took me down to Camp Wheeler, Georgia. That's right outside of Macon. So I went down there for those 13 weeks. And after that training was over, we had all kinds of maneuvers. The first thing, when you're in the infantry, you do a lot of walking. So we did a lot of hiking. And then we went on a rifle range and we learned about the different kinds of rifles and the different weapons that we could use. But back then, there were camps all over the country, and I don't think the Camp Wheeler's even there anymore. It was like a temporary camp. So after I finished there, they sent me up to Blackstone, Virginia, up in the Blue Ridge Mountains to take mountain maneuvers. And I wound up there at Camp Pickett. And they were waiting for the 45th Division, which had moved clear across the country to different states. Originally, they were National Guards, and they originated in Oklahoma, Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico, those 4 states. And so at the time too, before I got in the service, the emblem that they had on their patch, on their shoulder patch, was a swastika. And of course that had to be changed because they found out what Hitler was doing, and they found out that that was his symbol, so they changed it. And the only difference on the design, the only restriction was it had to be a patch with 4 sides representing those 4 states who were National Guards in the Oklahoma, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. So that's what we have there. We have that bird here, that Thunderbird, called the Thunderbird. That's a 45th. And they'd have, it's an Indian omen the same way that the swastika was. The Indians prayed to that big bird, because out in the western states, they had arid country, it was dry, the gardens couldn't grow, so they had this bird that came across there, a big bird, and it had lightning coming out of its eyes, and whenever it flapped its wings, it made it thunder. And then on top of its back, it had this great big lake of water. And whenever it flew over the dry lands and the gardens needed water, it just rolled over and dumped all that water on the land there. That's what they believed in, and that's what they had. But we saw that too in the 45th Division, because when we were in Italy, there were days here where it didn't stop raining there, especially at Monte Casino. But all the vehicles were buried down to the axles, and you couldn't move out of there. But that's in part of my talk here too. So the outfit was moving across, and they got up to Pine Camp in New York, and then they came down to Blackstone, Virginia, to get on ships to go overseas. And that was the 45th Division, so I went overseas with them. When we got there, we left on June the 3rd, 1942. And we got to Oran, Africa on the 22nd. Now the reason it took so long to get there was because they said that there were U-boats and submarines under the water there, so we wanted to avoid them one way or another, so we zigzagged different places. We didn't go on a straight line. But I did see depth charges that they dropped, because through their sounding system, they found out that there was some U-boats and some other boats under there, like the submarine. So they dropped the barrels of explosions down in there, and he would drop them every day. Now we didn't hit anything, because if we hit anything there, we would get an oil spill. You would see an oil spill out in the water, so we never saw anything like that. So we were safe that way. So we wound up in Oran. My older brother had been in North Africa from the beginning, and that campaign was winding down. And General Patton was a Pattoneer with the tank divisions. My brother was in an ACAC outfit with a 40mm Bofors, and so he stayed in there until that campaign was over. Then they transferred him over to Italy to combat engineers, and they built bridges and things like that. So then we were getting prepared. They gave us a flyer that had a picture of an island, and it said Sicily on there, and we thought, well, that's where we're going to go. We're going to go in there. So we went in on July the 10th, 1943. And we were supposed to go in 2 weeks earlier than that, but somehow or other they had figured a storm was going to come, a wild mild storm, which it did. We waited and they figured, well, nobody would expect anybody would invade their country during a storm like that. The breakers on the water on the Mediterranean were 13 foot high. It was just wild. So we had these cargo nets and we come down there on the ladders. We come in and so I was in on the first wave and we got into smaller boats and went to the shore. It was like 2 o'clock, 2:30 that morning of July the 10th. And when we went in there, we were supposed to hit a sandy beach. In all our training, you're supposed to go in there up to the land where the beach is, and then they would open the door in the front, and you'd walk out. Maybe the deepest water would be like up to your knees or something like that. The boat that I was on, the commander on there, he made the first mistake. He had all the ones with the rifles and everything, the fixed rifles. And I don't know why he gave that order. Maybe he figured when we were going to hit land, we're going to have hand-to-hand fighting right away. So they had everybody crouched down, they fixed their bayonets. I couldn't do that because I was a BAR man. I carried the Browning automatic rifle. And it's not made to carry a bayonet. So I didn't have that. So when we went in, of course, the guys from the Navy, they piloted those boats that got in there. Like I say, we were supposed to hit the sandy beach, but they missed that. What happened, we hit a great big rock, smashed up against the shore on this big rock. And we were supposed to either go to Gela or Scoglita, those two beaches there, but we didn't go to either one of those. So the young fellow from the Navy, he used his head. He kept gunning the engine to keep that up against the rock. So the first guy climbed out of there and pulled the next one out, and each one pulled each person out of there, and we get everybody out on shore. But during that process, when we hit those big rocks, the guys that had these guns with bayonets on them, they stuck the guy ahead of them. Some in the back, some in the shoulder, some in the legs, some of them got missed altogether. So we dragged that one fellow out that got pierced pretty hard with the bayonet, and we pulled him up on the shore. But he only lived about 20 minutes because he had lost too much blood. So he like I say, it was a bad mistake. It was something it should not have happened. Well, that wasn't the end of the mistakes there. Another thing that happened was that storm was ongoing. And daylight and nighttime and any other time, it was just like a fog. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And we kept getting the alert signs. They told us there might be a German paratroop attack. So keep your eyes open, just take care of business, you know. Well, at that point in time, we were all new soldiers, and we could not tell a German plane by the engine and motors, but we could learn what they were later on. When we saw a bomber or heard a bomber coming over, we knew right away whether it was a German or an American one. But at that time, we didn't know that, so everybody was just nervous. And when the first big bomber came over, with paratroopers on it, you couldn't see them, but everybody fired up in the air. Well, everybody fired. I had a magazine or two that I fired up there, and you didn't know anything until the next morning. Next morning, when it broke daylight, we saw some paratroopers hanging in the olive trees here in Sicily. And most of them were dead. Some of them were just wounded, and most of them were dead. And you looked at them, and it said there, the patch on there, it was the 82nd Airborne. They were shooting our own men down. And that wasn't only us from the infantry, but the Navy opened up and shot up in the air with just bad communication all the way around. And that 504 regiment contains the 82nd Airborne. And the statistics came out later on that altogether they lost 227 men by that friendly fire. So that's something that you don't like to see. I mean, your own friends getting killed like that just by different mistakes. So every year I used to follow in the newspaper after the war, and there'd be a little clipping in there because somebody had to be held accountable for that incident, what happened with those paratroopers getting shot down. So it went on for several months, and then after that they just said that they were going to quit the investigation because they blamed it on the weather. It was a bad storm. They blamed it on bad communication. We got the wrong information. There weren't German paratroopers. We should have been on the alert. And then we were green soldiers. We were just young, just starting. When we went into Sicily, we were the first Americans on European soil. And then after that, things started happening real faster. So the second day in Sicily, our objective thing was to go up to Comiso Airport. There's an airfield up there about 20 miles north of where we were. And of course, when you're in the infantry, how are you going to go 20 miles? You're going to walk. You're going to walk in the infantry. So we walked up there, and we had the 158th Artillery with us, and they opened up with some small arms fire and everything, but they gave up right away. So right there at that airfield, we captured 450 soldiers. They were both Italian and Germans. And we captured 120 airplanes that were on the field. And then we also captured 200,000 gallons of aviation fuel. And all those that got captured got sent back to different camps where they had the people that were captured. So anyhow, we went into Sicily, a lot of small towns, but we went up to the northern part. Now, we were in Sicily. Our outfit was on the western side. Then on the right side was Montgomery from England. And those two guys, my generals at that time was Patton, George Patton, and Dwight D. Eisenhower. They were my two generals. And as long as we were going in the same direction, these two guys had a race to Messina. The upper most part of Sicily where they have the Straits of Messina right there. There's only 2.5 miles of water right there. But anyway, we went up there, but with Patton the way he is, he was a pusher. He would drive you. And we got there before he did. We got there a little bit before Montgomery got there, so he was proud of that. But anyway, when we were up there in the northern part too, we had another thing that we observed, another thing happened there. And that was with the town there of, I don't remember the name of it right now. It's a popular town down there. Do you know what that was, Patty? I forget it right now. Certain places and certain dates I forget about it. But anyhow, there was a hotel in that town, on that street.
That was in Palermo. Is that Palermo? Palermo?
Palermo.
Was that it?
Yeah, Palermo. It was Palermo.
Okay,
As a matter of fact, as long as we're talking about Palermo, that was the headquarters for the mafia. They got their orders from Palermo, from their gang, whatever they had. They got their orders from that. So on that street, there was only one big hotel. And we were on a bivouac area on top of one hill, and we saw this Stuka dive bomber coming down, and he made one pass, went over in order to get his bearings. And that plane only has one bomb underneath of it. So it would dive down to a target, and then he'd pull the trigger on that and release that bomb. Well, we watched that plane come down, and we figured, you know, he's gonna hit that hotel. It's the only big building on that street. And he was too quick with the trigger finger because he let the bomb go out quicker than it should have. And the bomb landed in the street and made a big crater right in the street. And then when it got daylight, the next day we checked it all out and saw what happened. And you know who was in that hotel? Bob Hope and his troop. Bob Hope in there. They were going to put on a USO show for us back in the rear echelon a couple days later. So there was Bob Hope, there was Francis Langford, the singer, there was Tony Romano, his guitar player, and there was another man in there, I never found out his name, but he worked with the sound system. Maybe he took care of the microphones and things like that. And so that was a close call. They could have all been wiped out if that guy or that stupid guy, if he would have hit that hotel, they might all have been gone. So you have to give them credit because a lot of those movie stars, they didn't have to go there. They volunteered to go overseas to help put on a show, you know, so that the morale of the soldiers would be built up and all that. So, but I got to see different people like that. I got to see Marlena Dietrich. I saw George Raft, and I saw Primo Canero. Remember the prize fighter, Italian prize fighter? He was a heavyweight boxer. Primo Canero, he put on an exhibition bout. But all these people were over there, but near that place, Palermo, was one of the biggest battles that we had in Sicily. It was called Bloody Ridge. It wasn't far from Salerno, so anyhow. We were getting ready there after about 6 weeks. We were getting ready to invade Italy. We were going into Italy, and some of the other troops went in the southern part, like the British troops went into Reggio Calabria, but there was no action down there. They went down there. There was some ammunition dumps down there that they wanted to overtake. They wanted to get that. But we went to Italy and then worked our way up north. But in Italy, then I got a different general. It was Mark Clark. And we went up to Monte Casino. There was a mountain there around Casino, and on top of that mountain was a monastery, and we were in a valley below that, and there was a big artillery piece clear on the other side of the mountain, and they were using the monastery there for an FO, forward observation post, for the artillery that fired the shells. So they were doing that, and our planes could never find them because one big plane that they had there, one big train that they had there was called the Anzio Express. We call it the Anzio Express. Some people refer to it as the Anzio Annie. It was a huge cannon. It took 22 German soldiers to operate that cannon. And it was so massive that it was on train wheels with 38 car wheels on it, and that big gun was on there. And whenever they fired it, it would back on the tracks into caves, into tunnels that they had built over all those years. So our airplanes could never find it to knock it down. So anyway, the president got wind that we were losing too many men down in that valley. So he gave the orders that they should get rid of that. So we used to watch those B-17s coming up, and they were going to hit targets up north of us. So this one morning after they got that order to wipe out that monastery, we saw the B-17s coming up and the B-24s come over also. And we saw the bomb bay doors opening. We said they're gonna hit that, which they did. They just leveled it off. Then we were able to move out of that place. Before that, we were just pinned down, and we lost a lot of men for that. So that's what happened at that point. But anyway, during a war like that, you go from one place to another, and you don't know what the objective is going to be. But some people wonder about, like with Patton. One with Patton, he was a strict person. I mean, he was real hard with the people. He kept pushing all the time. I know the first time I got to talk with him, he came up to me and said, "Soldier," he says, "where are you from?" I said, I come from some small town in Ellwood City. And he said, a lot of people here from small towns. He said, they don't all come here from New York City. And then he saw, that's a heavy weapon you were carrying. So I was a BAR man. And I'll tell you a little bit about that gun. And then he said, you keep it clean. He said, but someday it may save your life. So when it comes to that rifle, you'll see it here in the picture. That rifle weighed 21 pounds. The rifle itself weighed 20 pounds. Now it weighed 17. It weighed 17 pounds. The bipod that you put on the front weighed 3 pounds. They took it up to 20. And then one magazine of 20 rounds was 1 pound. So altogether, fully loaded, it weighed 21 pounds. And this is why we had a team. We had a team of 3 men, BAR teams. We had the gunner, assistant gunner, and the carrier. These other 2 fellas, one of them was named, my assistant gunner was named Roy Zuber. The first one I had, he was from Petersburg, West Virginia. The other one, and he carried Springfield, those 3. And then the next man in there was, he carried a Mauser. He carried an M1. And he was from Hannibal, Missouri. So we had those 3 men, and they stayed with us pretty much of the time. And so it seems to me that the outfit that I was in, not my own weight, but the extra weight that I had to carry probably was 60 pounds, about 60 pounds more, because the cartridge belt that I had was extra deep, because I had 10 of those magazines to fit in that cartridge belt to go in. That was an extra 10 pounds that you had to do that. But then with all the other things, you would have that. And that gun that I started talking about, it used a lot of ammunition. Because if you fired that thing and you put the trigger on it, just held the trigger there, you got rid of 20 rounds in 2.5 seconds. That's how fast it was. The only thing faster than that was machine gun. Machine gun was faster than a BAR. So we had a few of those, you know. Every company and every battalion had several of those Browning automatic rifles. So it was something that you had to learn how to use. You had to be a specialist at it, because if you had if you go out in the field, out in the range, and it's your turn to learn to fire the BAR, one of the drill sergeants, they put me wise to it. He says, if you want to hit the target, the bullseye, he said, you don't aim at that, because that gun jumps. Well, you know, it jumps like that. So he said, if you want to hit the bullseye, he said, you aim down at the lower end of the lower side of the target, down on the bottom. He says that you'll get most of the shell, most of the bullets will go into the bullseye. So he taught me that. I think that's why they made me. I was one of the smallest men in the company, they give me the heaviest weapon. That's where the Army is. So, then we had to be pulled back there, and we went up to the place called Anzio. And when we first got on the boats and went up there, we saw something altogether different. It was all level ground. Before that, we had been in some of the mountains in Italy, and it was so rough in those mountains that we were able, as infantrymen, we walked up those hills. But to get our supplies and ammunition and everything, you couldn't drive a truck up there. So the 2.5 tons GMCs, which they used a lot, they couldn't go. So what they did, they hired some mules from the farmers, and they had a mule train there. These mules come up with supplies on their back and everything, and come up to the mountains and gave us our supplies. And what happened was too, that area, if one of the mules or any of them got hit in a crossfire, got killed, they had to pay that, the government paid that farmer $500 for each mule that they lost. So it looked to me like at that time that the mules were worth more than what we were. So we had to have those. So we get up into the Anzio, and you couldn't dig a foxhole at night. We just slept with foxholes. We always had 2 men. We'd start digging. One man would have a pickmatic. We'd start digging the dirt. The other one had a shovel. Both of them had folding handles on them, so it would fit on your backpack. And you just dug. One did the digging, one did the shoveling, and then you slept together, back to back, and then the heat from your body kept each other warm enough. So that's the way we went from one country to another, from one campaign to another. Was in foxholes. We didn't always every night sleep in the foxhole. If we found a barn that was empty, we would go and sleep in the barn. If we saw a church that was vacant, people had evacuated through all the bombings, and we'd go and stay there in the church. So we would do that. So there's different times you just had to adjust yourself, but most of the time we slept in foxholes, and we had our shelter half, we had a piece of canvas, we had our blanket, each man had a blanket, and we had our supplies there, our canteen, our mess kit, everything. We all had 2 grenades that we carried all the time. We're in Anzio now. And as we go through there, we see that over on the side there, and up on the side, they're not mountains, but there's caves in there. And of course, by that time, the Germans are catching up. I mean, they have good artillery and everything, and they kept firing at it. They kept firing at us, and we couldn't keep up with what they were doing. But we did a good job of it, because I have a citation here, a presidential citation, where our 2nd Battalion, which was in E Company, they gave us that citation because we kept the Germans from advancing within 1,000 yards. That battle there lasted for a whole week, solid, and we kept them from coming any closer than 1,000 yards. They threw at us about 6 battalions of German infantry were there, so we got that commendation there. That's the highest award that a unit can get, the Presidential Unit Citation. So I have that here too, that you can look at. Later on, you can look at some of these things, and if you have any questions, then I'll answer those. So from there, we moved from those caves, but before we left that place at Anzio, It was heavy artillery fire that lasted for 2 weeks. And we had the German battalions coming after us, about 6 of them in all. And we didn't yield to them more than 1,000 yards, have them away from us. We lost a lot of men, but we held our position there. And so we got a Presidential Unit Citation, which is the biggest award that a unit can get from the President. And we got that. I have that here. But it was at that place there that I lost my gunner, my assistant gunner, Roy Zuber. He got hit by a sniper one morning, and he was wearing his helmet. If he wasn't wearing a helmet, that bullet would have probably gone right over his head. But he got hit right on top of the helmet, and his helmet with a steel on it that ricocheted with the bullet down the side of his face here and pulled out his left eye. And so we put him in one of those caves. And the artillery there was against us was so strong that we couldn't get him to a medic. And what we did, we got his undershirt and we put a lot of that, we all carried on our pouch, on our belt, we carried that white sulfadilamide powder. Well, that's okay for infection or something like that, but it's no good for pain. It doesn't help with pain. He needed something like morphine or something like that. And we didn't have that many medics in the army like that. You have a lot of soldiers, but you have one medic for maybe 100 and some men that he has to take care of. You don't have that many medics. So anyway, he was in that cave there for 3 days, and he was suffering. He just, his eyeball was hanging down, the nerves were still hooked on him, and was bouncing like a yo-yo. And we bandaged him up. So, but I got to see Roy at one of the camps, replacement camp, and we got re-outfitted because we were getting ready now to go into southern France. And so I saw him walking at a distance there, so I walked up to him. And I said, Zuber, how you doing? He said, oh, he says, I'm doing okay. And I looked at him and I laughed at him because Zuber had one brown eye and one blue eye. So he said, yeah, go ahead and laugh. He said, everybody laughs at me. So he said they promised him that when he got back to the States that they would fix him up right. And so they wanted to keep that socket open. So they didn't have the right size brown eye, but they had the right size blue eye. They just stuck that in his head. And it worked good for him too, because several years later, my wife and I went on a camping trip down in Falling Waters, West Virginia, nice camp. So I looked on a map and I told my wife, you know, we're not too far from Petersburg. I said, why don't we drop down there and see if Zuber's still alive? She said, okay. We went down there and I went in the post office and asked the postmaster, do you know anything about Roy Zuber? Do you know where he lives? He said, oh, yeah. He said, we send a mail down there every day. And he gave me the number of the house, gave me the street number, told me how many lights to go down, where to make the left turn. So I went up there and went on the porch. My wife stayed out in the car, and she said, I'm not going to go up there. She said, because he might not be living. She said, it might be embarrassing, one thing or another. So she said, you go up there yourself. So I went up there and knocked on the door, and Roy came to the door. He says, may I help you? And I didn't say a word. Then he said again, may I help you? And I said, you son of a gun, Zuber, you don't remember me? Oh, he grabbed me and hugged me. And he said, come on in now, come on in here. And so I motioned to my wife to come on up here, come up here now. So we went in his house, spent the afternoon with him, talking about old times. And he was right, they fixed him up good. He had Now he had two brown eyes. And a scar down across his face, down the side of his face where they had to sew it up, you know, where he got injured with that. But it's bad when you have to lose somebody like that. You're close as a brother when you're living with them like that. I mean, you're sleeping in the same foxhole with them. When they're in trouble, you help them out, they help you out. You're never there for yourself. You're there to help somebody else out, so. So anyway, there's other things like that that had happened, so we went, when we were in France, we went to certain places like St. Martin, St. Maximin, Lille, and Alex, a place called Alex, and there were some rough battles there. A lot of battles were pretty heavy, pretty strong. There at Alex, we met the German Mark 6, big tank. And we were there and saw that tank knock out 5 of our Sherman tanks, firing 88 shells. And we also got introduced to those butterfly bombs. And sounds like it'd be a pretty thing, but they were rough. The planes would fly over us. They had these bombs inside of a metal container. And when they dropped them down there and they'd hit the ground, they would explode. And then the shrapnel would fly over a wide area. And also, what a lot of people don't understand, when we first went into the war there, their weapons and everything were better than ours. They had more years to prepare for it. They had factories and everything making that stuff. So later on, whenever it got scarce, they had to go underground. And they lost like a lot of their supplies, supply lines got bombed and things like that. But got introduced then to this other thing. They had like with our mortars, we had mortar men that they fired a mortar. It was one shell at a time. Now they had one over there that was a 6-barrel mortar. It was like a carousel. And once they released that and the thing went around with 6 mortars flying in the air, that covered a big area. That was the place where I got hit. I got hit there with some fragment, but it wasn't much. It wasn't much. It was just a little bit in my leg, a little bit in my chest. So they sent me back for a field hospital. I was only there for 3 days. And anyhow, you might have heard this story too, but that's when I went AWOL from there. I was in that hospital, and the next morning, a major who was a doctor, comes through for a bed check, and he saw that I wasn't in my bed, and he waited for me. So when I come back in, he said, "Where have you been, soldier?" I said, "I went out to the latrine. I had to go to the bathroom, and I went to the latrine." And he started reading the riot act at me. Oh boy, you know who I think I was. They have nurses there, they have doctors, they had urinals, they have bedpans. If I have to go, I have to call one of them to come over there. And I just didn't like the guy's attitude. That afternoon, on the 3rd day, that afternoon, I saw this truck, a tanker, and I saw in a bunker there, 45th Headquarters Company, 45th Division. So I asked the driver, I says, "Are you going back up to the outfit?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Can I ride up with you?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "When are you going to leave?" He said, "Right now I'm going up." I said, "Okay." I jumped in and went up with him. The next I went up there, and I went to my company there, and I went to my company commander, Felix Sparks. And I said, "Captain," I said, "I think I'm in trouble." He said, "Why is that?" I said, "I'm AWOL." I said, "I left that hospital with no discharge papers and everything." I said, they didn't know anything about me. I said, they probably had the MPs looking for me. He said, Prestia, I'll tell you something. He said, they might be looking for you because you were missing down there, but I guarantee you they're not coming here. They're not going to come up here. So anyway, he said, don't worry about it. He says, I'll take care of it. He said, get your gear ready. He said, we'll pull it out in the morning. So he saved the day for that. But anyhow, that was my story about not going AWOL. So I went to the right place too. I went to my outfit. I was safe there from the MPs. So from there we went up to the Vosges Mountains, and it was a winter time then, and there was snow and rain, cold weather, bitter cold. But we got outfitted before that with parkas and heavy socks and new shoes and new clothing and everything like that. And but I had read someplace where we were the first soldiers to ever do any battle in the Vosges Mountains up there. And hardly anybody did any fighting there. They wouldn't go near the place. So anyway, from there we worked down close into Germany and went across the Rhine River. And then from there we went to different towns like Altenburg and Reipersweiler, Nuremberg, places there, a lot of places in there. And it was getting to the point where Hitler was finally realizing that he might be near an end. Something could happen. Because the prisoners that we were taking then, some of them were like 79 years old. And then other ones that came in with their hands over top of their head. Those kids were 14 years old. So they were hitting the bottom of the barrel. They were losing a lot of men. They lost their supply lines. They lost a lot of things in there. So as we went there, we were supposed to go to Munich, Germany. It was a big city, and that's a place where they started the Nazi program, was in that city. But our company commander, who was, by that time, he got promoted as a lieutenant colonel, Felix Spark, they told him to swing down to Dachau, see what's going on. And so we did there. It was about 10 miles away from Munich. So we went down there, and when we first went in, we saw the front of the camp. They had 4 big towers up there and had machine gunners up in there. But we went in the back side where they had, I think it was 52 different guards. So Heinrich Himmler, who was in charge of that camp, he saw what was happening. So he pulled out of there and he took his best soldiers who out there, the SS troopers, he took them out and he skipped out of there. And he never lived to stand trial, those Nuremberg trials, because they gave him a cyanide tablet. He put that in his mouth. He committed suicide. He just died. But when we went in there, it was something that we were not prepared for, anything like that in our lives. We saw people getting hit, getting wounded. We saw them die. We saw many of them get killed different ways. But when we went in there, we never saw anything like that. We saw this train car over there. It had 39 cars on it, I believe. And we thought that there were logs on there, piled on there. Here we got closer and we found out there were human beings laying on there. And so we saw all the other people coming out of the barracks and everything once they saw who we were. but the soldiers are sound. With all the with all of the commotion that was going on, there had to be some kind of order taken. So our company commander had that 43, and he fired it up in the air and told them that everybody stop shooting and do this. They had those guards out there, and we had one fellow that set up his machine gun and he started to fire that way. And everybody fell down to the ground, but then whenever everything cleared up, there was only 17 that stood up. Some of them did get hit with that machine gun. So anyway, we weren't allowed to give them any food, because the medics told us if you feed them, they're so undernourished, meant that they would probably die. So they took them and sent them to the different hospitals, to the different countries, to nourish them back to health again. So that's what they did. So at Dachau there, we got out, we liberated 31,000 people, but over 2,000 were in there dead. And the smell, the stench and everything in there, a lot of soldiers, they just sat down and they cried because they've never saw anything like that before. Some of them vomited, and lots of us just did those. You just vomited and got sick and everything. So we got out that place, but then we had this one more mission. We had to go into Munich.
Dad, tell them about the soup. Tell them about the soup that the...
Oh, yeah. Well, before we went to Munich, then we got checked over and everything, and the medics were around there. Now, Heinrich Himmler, when he pulled out of there, he told his guards, he says, I don't want to see one man alive in that camp. So what happened was, the next day, we got there just in time, because the next day, they were going to give all the inmates a bowl of soup. And these people were starving. I mean, you could see the bones on their body. And anybody that hungry is going to eat soup. And the medics checked out those kettles on that big stove. They were all poisoned. They were all poisoned. So we got in there just the right day. The next day would have been too late. Instead of liberating 31,000, we'd have lost a lot of people because of that. Then we had to go on to Munich, Germany, and the city was just bombed out bad. So there weren't too many occupants in there. Even there were a few tanks. It was still mined. The streets were mined. And there were still snipers in some of the buildings. But they gave up pretty quickly. Whenever they saw the force coming at us, we had a lot more people there than what they had. And so that was May the 8th. Now we liberated Dachau on April the 29th. My birthday's on the 26th. So 3 days later, we liberated Dachau on the 29th, and at that time I was 23 years old. So then I stayed in the Army of Occupation for another 6 months. I could have come home right then after 3.5 years, but there was a couple of reasons I wanted to stay there. We had some German prisoners of war that were on detail work, and we had this one guy that Werner is his name, a German guy, and I made friends with him. He could speak English, and he said that before the war started, he was going to some college and he was going to be an architect. He took studies and blueprints, stuff like that. So he had those visions there, but then a war broke out. And the same thing with me. I had other plans. I didn't want to go to war. I never had a rifle, never fired a rifle, didn't know what it looked like, but they showed me all about it. He was a good friend of mine. And another thing, my grandparents, they were both living, and they were down the southern part of Italy, and I wanted to go visit them. That would have been something nice. So I stayed in another 6 months, and this fellow, Werner, he asked me to do him a favor, and I said, yeah, I'll do it. What do you do? He said, I'd like to have a smoking pipe. I said, okay. He said, I'll get you one of those and mail it to you. Then he said, I'd like to have a can of tobacco for that pipe. I said, I could do that. And he said, well, I'd like to have also one pair of those white athletic socks, because you can't get them in Germany any place. I said, okay, I'll do that. So when I come home, I went up to Cleveland. I was working up there as a machinist, and I worked at several places up there. I worked at Tongue Motors. I worked at all over Cliff Track and different places before I went back to Ellwood, the Standard. So I worked up there for about 8 years. So I went to a high school where they taught German. So I have a letter right there that he wrote me. It's in German, and she translated for me in English, and it's right there. So I went to the drugstore, and I got him that French medical pipe, and I got him a can of tobacco, and I think it was Prince Ellwood or something like that. Then I went to a haberdashery store up there where they had underwear and socks and things like that. So I got him a package with 6 or 8 pairs of socks. Boy, he was thrilled to death. He wrote me another letter. So anyhow, it's something like that. But when you're in a war, you say it's hard to get your rifle and fire at somebody. You know, it's a bad thing. You know, in the very beginning, you think, boy, it's just like murdering somebody. But when they have a rifle or whatever, and they're firing back at you, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier. So you just go on instinct, and you're trained to do that. You're trained to do that. But I know that we used to get the Stars and the Stripes every once in a while, and there was some girl who was traveling across the country. I don't know whether she was a whack or a wave, or I don't know what she's doing, but she was doing something, because when my outfit was in France, we had heard that the government had passed a law that anybody that was in combat should get paid a little bit more money. So that meant the combat infantrymen, the combat medics, or anybody like that was in combat. So on our paychecks, we got $10 more a month. We didn't need that. I mean, what are you going to do with $10 more or whatever? So we got that. But while she was making a speech and she knew about that, she referred to us as high-paid killers. And I'll tell you, we read that in the paper. I don't know what her name was, I forget it, but after that her name was Mud. So anyway, that was like a bonus thing or something like that. So then I had to go down and see my grandparents. So my supply sergeant gave me 2 barracks bags just filled with everything. I mean, he had flour and sugar, and had shoes and trousers and shirts and everything. So I got on a train and I went down there, southern part of Italy, down to Reggio Calabria. And my grandma told me that when she saw me, that I looked just like her son did when he left. He was 17 years old when he left there. But he wasn't old enough to come by himself. But he had a brother-in-law who was in his 20s, so they came over together. And so while I'm talking with her, she sees this bag of either flour or sugar, but she sees some grains on top of it. So she put her finger in her mouth and touched that, put it in her mouth, it was sugar. And she said, you know, that's the first time I tasted sugar in 4 years. 4 years. Because all their food was rationed to the German army. They couldn't, anything they had was what they raised on their own ground. They couldn't buy anything. So it was bad for civilians every place. Civilians getting to see things you can't hardly believe. I know one time on one evacuation, I saw people that were leaving the town to go to some higher place because the city was getting blocked out. So when you're going to have to evacuate from your house and go someplace else, what are you going to do? You would take your prized possession, whatever you wanted to, try to carry it. So I just one girl going up the hill. A steep hill, she's going up there. She's about 19 years old. Strong girl. You know what she had on her head going up there? She had a Singer sewing machine. Upside down, and was on her head, and she was held like this, carried it on her head, and had her hand to balance it and everything. And I saw one of those Singers right at home. My mother had one. So somebody had sent her one years ago. Maybe she made clothes for her family or whatever. But yeah, she was carried out. Yeah. You learn about people and see how they live and different things. I don't know, I think it's good time for some questions if you
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
It took you a while before you were able to talk about the war. When did you finally be able to open up to your friends and your family to talk about it?
Well, when we came home from the service, none of the veterans talked, not even to their families. They wanted to get back to their life. They wanted to do things they had planned. Maybe they had a job and they wanted to go back to the same job. Then another thing, and I give credit to the people today, when we came home, not one person came up to me or any other veteran and shook our hand and said, thank you for your service. Now, the society has changed a lot. Since then, they have had places like this one. They've had historical centers. They've had parades. They've had different things. And today, I would be just like any other veteran. If I'm wearing this hat, they see I'm a World War II veteran. Without fail, either a woman or a man will come up and shake my hand in the grocery store and say, thank you for your service. That's a big difference. They didn't used to do that. They didn't do it because in World War II, there were 18 million Americans involved in that war. And everybody, or their neighbors, or their friends, or whatever, somebody was in that war. And so everybody was in the same boat, and they were just wanting to get going. So I didn't start doing this until my Patty here, her daughter, who is my granddaughter, she was in the 6th grade. And so the teacher started talking a little about World War II, and she raised her hand and said, my grandpa was in World War II, and he brought home the German Iron Cross, which I had. But anyway, he was dead, so he was So anyhow, so she had called me a couple of days ago and combined a couple classes, and then my dad and my daughter had a video camera, took pictures of it and all that stuff. So then I started going to different places. I've been to about maybe 18 or 20 different schools for different classes, they call me. I just go, I like to go as long as I can. And so I've been to Slippery Rock College a couple times. I was there on a Thursday for an hour. And then some people wanted to hear that couldn't make it or something. So they asked me to come back the following Thursday. So I was over there a couple of times at Slippery. And I've been to the Rotary clubs, and I've been to all different places, so. I had a couple videos made. One was in Heinz Center in Pittsburgh. Then I had this girl come up to me from New Orleans where they have that new World War II museum. She come up to my house and said that she wanted to, she wanted to have a project to talk to somebody that was a liberator during World War II. So she came to my house. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning. She didn't leave there until about 4 in the afternoon. She made a tape, then she run out of that, then she made another tape, the second one, so I have that too, so. And
Well, we're
what they
grateful.
do, they'll make, the different schools that I go to, they'll make a tape out of it. And when they get done, they'll make a copy of it and send it to Washington DC. They'll put it in the archives down there.
It's very important. Most of you guys know a lot of World War II vets, some of them obviously your family members. They came home, they married their best gal, they went to work, they raised their family. I just did my job, no big deal. They just saved the world. But they're so modest, they're so humble. Hey, that's what was expected of us. That's what we do, that's what we did. They don't think to talk about it. Now, us young whippersnappers coming up that want to know everything about it, I used to pester all the guys in Eldred, all the World War II vets. Tell me about the war. I didn't do nothing, kid. They'd blow me off. Then you'd find out later, oh my God, they were in Normandy or Tarawa. You'd be amazed at their story, their personal story. Marty's father, tank destroyer, Silver Star recipient. Oh, yeah, he said, I didn't do that. He's just the nicest man you'd ever meet in your life, your father. But back in the day, he was a tank killer, and he did it well in North Africa. But you never know those stories. They never talk about them. Now that they've gotten up there a little bit and they're starting to talk, usually it's a grandchild or somebody will come to show and tell or come to Veterans Day. That's how we got Larry Burgoon's story. He wouldn't talk. Oh, I didn't do nothing. We said, would you come to the Veterans Day thing at the school? Well, okay. He comes to the school. It started pouring out. And we got a book this thick on him. He told his whole story. We got it all recorded. So it's very important. We're grateful that you're willing to share your story. Where else are you going to meet? When I sit up here listening to him talk, I'm like, oh my God, Monte Casino, Anzio, Salerno, Sicily. I mean, all these places I've been reading about since I was a kid. He was there. That's why I keep touching him. I mean, the horse's mouth, right here. This is a guy that was there. You can't get any better. There's no other, authors like Alex Kershaw, great author. But you know where he gets his info? You can't beat it. It's coming from, and so we're grateful that you're willing to share. With us folks here, these are all history lovers. They're here because they want to hear you. But it's so important that you're getting into the schools and talking to the kids. Because we still have young people coming in here. WWII? What's that? That's not ancient history. There's still people around that were there. And we're still feeling the effects today. And the lessons are very clear. Like I said, the Holocaust survivors, we did a Holocaust training thing here a few months ago, and that lady, that survivor, she said, just tell people what happened. Don't let them forget. That's why she was in her, in her 90s, and she's having some mobility issues, but she said, I'll go until my last breath telling the story. So hopefully young people will learn it really did happen, and please don't ever let it happen again. Amen. Very, very important. So we're so grateful that you're willing to share your story with us. What a great honor to have you here with us. Any other questions? Yes.
Do you know a guy named Jimmy Gentry from Nashville, Tennessee?
Jimmy Gentry? Did you ever hear a guy named Jimmy Gentry from Nashville in your outfit?
No, I don't.
Probably not. It's a pretty big army.
Every once in a while we got attached by another unit.
Yep.
So we got with the 442nd. And what it was a Japanese Americans.
That's right.
And in that group of men was a corporal. And when we were in the Po Valley in Italy, this man lost an arm. You know who it was? Inouye.
Senator from Hawaii.
Senator.
Medal of Honor recipient.
There was a young man that just got out of college and he went to OCS and wound up in our company. And he got hit with a shell pretty bad. He was in the hospital for over a year, all kinds of surgery. But he didn't lose his arm. But when you see him making a speech now, he holds his arm. Bob Dole.
Bob Dole, Senator Dole, yeah.
He was in the Conflict too.
Yep. It's amazing, the liberation of Dachau, there's a lot of documentation, there's a lot of photographs and film, and I notice he has, when you get a chance to come up and check out some of these things, he has one of the photographs from the coal yard. This is just after Lieutenant Sparks, or Captain Sparks at that time, had knocked the gunner off the gun. And this coal yard is empty, there's no coal, and they've gathered all the Germans, and they're all standing there with their hands on their head, they're prisoners. And this one gunner, with tears running down his face, said, "You sons of boom, 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 boom," he lit them up. You can see they all hit the deck. There's a few of them just still stood there, they didn't know what to do. And Felix Sparks came and knocked them off the gun. Said, "Don't do that. That'll make you just as bad as they are. They'll get what's coming to them." Felix Sparks, actually, this book, I believe, of course my son has it, this should be mandatory reading for anybody going into the military, anybody in any leadership position. You want to talk about a leader? This guy, I'll tell you what, and I'm sure I would agree, they'd have followed him into the gates of hell. That's just what kind of leader he was, because you know what? He would have led them there. He would have been behind them. He's just a hell of a soldier. And as you can tell, and as Guy, I'm sure, still feels the effects, once they came in there, I mean, I can't imagine. Like I said, hardened, tough combat vets crying like little kids, just bawling at what they saw. And he talked about the human wreckage. These people coming up, they're just skeletons, skin and bones, coming up and grabbing their hand, trying to kiss their hand. "Thank you, you're finally here." So many of the people at Dachau that we rescued died anyway. They were too far gone to save. And our GIs, being the kind of guys they are, "Hey, I got a Hershey bar left over from lunch. Here, eat this, or an apple or something." And they'd eat it, it would kill them. And he talked about how they had the medics come in, "Don't give them any food. It'll kill them. It shocked their system. They're not used to that many calories in one shot." So it was chicken broth and bread and soup, trying to slowly build their health. But these people today, oh my God, they're still grateful. The survivor that was here a few months ago, they said they're our angels. You couldn't believe it, because they were going to be getting poisoned the next day at Dachau. They were going to kill them all. That's why when they got to Dachau and they came around the corner, when you go in the Holocaust room, you'll see photographs on the table under glass of those rail cars. There were 31 of them, and they came from Buchenwald. The Nazis were so intent on killing Jews right up to the very end, instead of the Americans or the Russians overrunning the camp and freeing them, they trained them or death marched them away from being free. That's how evil. Remember, toward the end of the war, actually early, mid-1944, Hitler was prioritizing rolling stock and rail traffic that needed on the Eastern Front ammunition, resupplies, replacements. No, that's secondary. We need to run Jews to Auschwitz. The trains had priority to kill the Jews over resupplying his armies. Horrific. So if there's any doubt in your mind what happened, please, I urge people, go to Europe. You know, people, I hear people all the time, "Are you sure that's really what happened? Is that how many really died?" I think the estimates are low. I really do. And the lady was here from Yad Vashem, we talked a little bit about that, and she said, "How could you ever get an accurate number? There's no way." So I think the numbers that they produce are low. The numbers at Dachau, 3,000, 5,000 bodies, at least 30 to 40, maybe even 50,000 killed at Dachau. And that wasn't a death camp, that was a concentration camp. They died there anyway from maltreatment, but it wasn't a death factory. So, I mean, you read the stories, it's one of my favorite parts of studying the war, the liberation of these camps. When our American soldiers knocked those gates down. The Band of Brothers, during Band of Brothers, when they show them liberating Ludwigsburg, they come into gates and there's all those people, "Oh my God, they're real. Americans are here." They couldn't believe it. Imagine they're getting scripts, you know what, they landed in Sicily, they're landing in Italy, they're landing in Normandy. "Oh my God, can we hang on until they get here?" Who knows? You know? And it became a race. Can the Americans get to us before we are starved or beaten or gassed to death? And thank God, I can't imagine, these guys must have looked like angels coming through those gates. Mind-boggling. So again, thank you, and we thank you so much for sharing your story. It's so important that the young people here see you and understand. Some of those young people over there, they get it. They're wearing your insignia over there. They want to be you. So, and that's me. I mean, anybody knows me here now, they're doing. When I was growing up, these guys were my heroes. I wanted to be these guys when I was a kid. I could not believe how amazing they were and still are.
one thing about it now, don't ever call me a hero. Because my opinion of a hero are the ones that never made it back. When we were there, we were to help each other. And going across France, we wondered, we've been over here now almost 4 years. What are we doing here? What's happening? And then after Dachau, we found out why we were there. You know what that was? To set people free.
Amen.
Make them free.
You sure did.
That's the main thing. But like I say, I don't consider myself to be a hero, but it's only by the grace of God that I'm here today. Because I've seen a lot of things.
Oh, boy.
A lot of things.
And thank God you're willing to share it with us. So once again, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know how they did it. I think the courage, the humility, the incredible selflessness. There's no words that we can come up with to say thank you enough. But this is why they're called the greatest generation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
I just wanted to know if you were in the Battle of Schaunisberg, and if you could maybe talk a little bit about that battle.
Were you in Offschlaffenburg, the Battle of Offschlaffenburg?
Yeah.
In Germany? Yep, he was.
Yeah, that was in Germany, yeah.
My grandfather died in that battle.
He was killed in that battle. Do you have anything on him? Any photographs, letters, documents, anything that we can research?
I actually am having someone research that.
Yes.
In St.
We
Louis.
would like a copy of that, and we'll help you in any way we can. We will put him in a binder and put in our library. We collect those stories.
I
We
will
use
let
them
you
to
know
teach
when I
kids.
get it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can't have it, we don't get it unless the families bring it to us. And they bring us things, and then I get this new thing called the interweb. You've heard of this, right? And I start, my 2 fingers get to going, and I add whatever else I can add to the story, we'll add to it. It's terribly important.
Place where that lady's grandfather was killed?
I don't know. Offschlaffenburg?
Yeah.
Do you remember that battle, Offschlaffenburg?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They would like to know a little bit about that, if you can tell
Yeah, well, the main thing is, with Hitler, at that point in time, he could see what was happening, so what they did, they would reinforce whatever they had. Just with the artillery, with the men, and with the different kinds of weapons and everything, they would do more. And those battles in Germany, toward the end there, they were bad. They were merciful because they were getting down to the bottom of the barrel. We were capturing people that were 79 years old that they put in the army. And not only that, we saw some guys coming in with their hands over their head. They were 14 years old. They were just teenagers. So they were getting in the bottom of the barrel, so it got pretty rough. So whatever they had, they would throw that in, and those battles were big.
Horrible.
Very
You remember, each city, Hitler determined those cities were fortresses.
Yeah.
Fortress Breslau, Fortress Nuremberg, Fortress Munich, and he ordered everybody fight to the last bullet, except for me, I'll be over here, right? And that's how a lot of those guys were fanatics. Munich being the birthplace of Nazis, in Munich and Nuremberg, they fought like demons to hold on to those cities. So there's very high casualties, and anybody who's ever been in the army, everybody's ever fought in an urban environment, it's the worst. I'd rather be out in the woods fighting than be in a city fighting, sewers and attics and rooms and closets. Very, very dangerous fighting. And those Germans, as he's saying, they were dug in like pigs on a coonhound. They were not coming out, and we had to root them out room by room. It was brutal fighting, very high casualties. Now, Schlafenberg took some heavy fighting before we took that city. Absolutely. Anybody else? Oh, yes.
I hope this is appropriate to ask what the sacrifices that you and your generation made when you were young men. Today, when you see people in this country like flaunting these flags, symbols of Nazi Germany and what they stood for, like, what do you think about that? And if you had a message to say to those people, what would it be? You know?
What do you think of those people? They're white supremacists flying Nazi flags and all those kind of knuckleheads when you see that. You can't say what he thinks.
I think people like that should be charged with treason. Because I think in this country, you know, there is some freedom, but sometimes with some people, we give them too much freedom. But anytime a person wants to protest, you can do that in a way that will be peaceful, and a way that, but I don't like to see these skinheads, these people that belong to the German Bund with uniforms and everything, with a Nazi sign on their arm and everything. We fought against that to keep people free, and they have secret meetings. You don't know what's going on in those meetings. So I'm against all that stuff.
And you see that.
Give the people the rights. Anybody that takes an American flag and throws it on the ground and spits on it, I don't know, they don't belong in this company.
Amen.
I agree.
We have some local fella up here, Ulysses up Potter County, flies a Nazi flag, and he's all Heil Hitler and stuff. And you know, it's a free country. We fought for his right to do that. I say he's just self-identifying as an idiot, so we all know. I say let him fly it. That way we know where he is, you know, we need to know that. But that's one of the downfalls of a free country, you know, you get put up with idiots as well as regular folks. And I always teach the kids, that flag is just a symbol. It is, it's just a symbol, but I'm telling you, what it represents is critical and so important. I tell people, when you're disrespecting that flag, remember, there are people that folded that flag on the casket of their friends and handed it to their wife or their mother. I did it 4 times. I can tell you, that flag means an awful lot to me. So you want to burn that flag? You're allowed. It's legal. You're expressing yourself. It's the First Amendment, freedom of speech. America's bad. They want to burn the flag, go ahead. Burn it in front of me, you're going to the emergency room. Good. I'm going to jail. Kids understand what our symbols represent, it's not just what it is. Right now, I just had a bunch of kids here the other day. I laughed. I said, how can it be that in some of our colleges and out west, they're flying the communist flag on their campuses, and in Hong Kong, they're flying the American flag. We'd like to be free. We got people in our country, yay, communism. Scary world we're living in. Now, a lot of World War II vets, when I talk to them, they're a little upset. They say, man, kids today, woo, what a bunch of knuckleheads. I say, wait a minute, there's still some awesome kids coming up in this country. Last week, I was at Fort Benning, Georgia, pinned my infantry cord on my young son as he completed the infantry officer basic course. And as he marched across the field, there were 250 other kids marching across the field. There's still some awesome young men coming up in this country, and women. So it's important that we kind of highlight them and not focus so much on the knuckleheads and get all the attention. Yes, ma'am.
There's a lady over here who wants to say something.
I took my hand, but everybody...
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
I didn't know if you could see me, but today, even today, the effects of the war are in my family because my husband never had a father.
That's right.
He left after he came back from cleaning up Dachau, and he left his family. After he was married, I don't know if it was the PSTD, or whatever that is.
Sure.
And 7 years later, his wife filed for divorce on grounds of abandonment. Well, it turned out that he had committed suicide.
Oh, very common. Remember, after World War II, they couldn't. World War I, they called it shell shock or battle fatigue. They knew something was up, but they didn't really know how to deal with it. World War II, and he can tell you, as a combat vet, when you see a guy next to you and he breaks down and he's lost it, he can't function, he's shaking and crying, you don't ostracize that guy. You don't say, oh, what a loser, you're a sissy, whatever. You know exactly, any one of us could break at any moment. You get that guy to the rear, you get him the help he needs, try to hopefully get him to keep his stuff together. It's terrible.
His mother always told him how bad she hated his father. So I've been writing a book about his life. I've been researching. I got to this point, and I'm like, what can I write about that?
Right, it's difficult.
So
today in our country, 22 a day we're losing.
Yeah.
22 veterans a day on average are committing suicide in our country. Some of them in the parking lots of the VA. Go figure.
Well, this was in his car in California, so we have yet to go see the grave, but we've
They're
seen
trying to
it
develop, they've been trying since even since World War I, trying to figure out how to deal with that, and there's really nothing you can do.
He grew
I
up
found the
in
best thing for me is to talk to other veterans, because talking to civilians about it, they're like, they have no clue what you're talking about. In fact, I had some issues a few months ago, and I went to the VA in Olean, and man, the way they treated me, they gave me a packet of papers, and we're all upset when I was there, like I was bothering them, I guess. I just threw that pack of paper right in the air in the lobby and stormed out. The hell with you guys. So the VA, in some cases, are doing a great job. They're doing really good work taking care of our soldiers. Some of them not so good. It's just one of those hit or miss kind of things. But a lot of these soldiers came home, they fell into a bottle, they beat their wives, they were suffering PTSD. And we really didn't know how to deal with it. The VA didn't know how to deal with it. They're trying to do better and trying to help soldiers with that. And in fact, tomorrow, I'll be going to the Eagles game with the Buffalo Bills up here on a busload of veterans coming out of Olean, and they're all combat vets. I can't wait to get on that bus. It should be fun. I'm the only Eagles fan, so it should be I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than that, because as he told you, once you're in a zone with those guys, those people are closer to you than your own family. You really are. You become closer than your own family members. And like he said, looking up his buddy down there in West Virginia, there's nothing better than that. I'd love to just see that happen, you know. And it's true. It brings you very much closer together. And yeah, all we can do is try to make our country better for them, for what they did for us, for the sacrifice they made. And of those high school kids I had here the other day, not one of them. I said, what's the red represent in the American flag? Not one of them knew that's the blood of patriots who died for their freedom, including some of his friends. He left some of his blood over there in Europe for us. It's very important we teach them that. Oh, yes, sir.
Have you ever been back to Europe?
Did you ever go back to Europe after the war?
Yeah, I went back with my younger brother and a nephew, and we went back not to go see the battlegrounds. We went to see the grave sites and everything of our grandfather.
Oh, did you tell him that about your family?
Yeah.
His family that was in Italy during the war? Yeah. Pretty cool, right at the toe of the Italian boot. Yes, sir, or ma'am, sure, ma'am.
Thank you for your service. I had the privilege to go visit Dachau. And you see 31,000 guesstimate. How big of an area would you say that is?
Dachau?
Yeah.
What is it? 30 acres, 25, 30 acres? It's not
Yeah,
huge.
it's been added on to,
Yeah.
because when we were there, they were housing too many people. They couldn't hold it. That camp was built, it was the first one built by Hitler, and it was built in 1933. And then it kept getting bigger and bigger. Then it got to be other things. Some of those camps were just for executions. Other camps were like Dachau. They were for experimentations, and they had the gas chamber there. And then Himmler gave one of his soldiers a medal, because every once in a while they would send the people to this building where they got a shower. And he put an automatic contraption on the shower head that once they were in there, the water stopped and the gas came through there. So if they had the right number on their arm, it's time to be taking a shower. Because once they go in there, that nitrate shower, or that chemical that they did, nobody could live more than 8 minutes at the most. So they did a lot of that.
When you go
And they
visit,
gave that soldier a medal for that. I mean, they ought to give something, doing something good.
Amazing.
if anybody has the chance to go there, you can still smell.
Yes.
You can smell, and you can smell different areas, like the ash, and then you can smell the deep smell by those ovens. So, I mean,
It's important that people go
yeah.
there. And there's a famous Twilight Zone episode with Rod Serling. It shows an old SS guard going back to Dachau to kind of look over the old place where he used to work, and he sees a Jew. And he comes up, I thought I killed you. He did, it's a ghost. and he can't get out of the camp. The gates are all locked, and all the Jews that he killed come out, and they put him on trial, and they execute him, but they drive him insane. And at the very end, Rod Serling was a genius. At the very end, Rod Serling's talking about the doctor that comes to pick the guy up and take him away. He's insane now. They drove him insane. That's his punishment. And as he's leaving, the doctor goes, Dachau, why does it still stand? They should tear this down. And Rod Serling, his voice comes on, and he goes, tear it down. He said, this is a monument to the time when men turned the earth into a graveyard. If we tear it down, we'll forget it'll happen again. It's a monument. It's a purposely left there on purpose to make sure we remember. Because remember, there's a lot of people around the world. I used to fight with Aunt Maria in Germany. She swore this was all a hoax. It was all fake. Now remember, she was a Hitler Youth as a child, brainwashed right to the core. She said, this is all fake, it's all fake. I said, go there. Emily just got back from Auschwitz. How can you hide the scope, the scale? Treblinka, they killed 900,000 people in 9 months. The Russian closed in, they dynamited it, bulldozed it, flattened it, planted trees like there was nothing ever there. But there's roads coming in, and like, what was here? They found it as Treblinka, right? There's still bones leaching up through the ground at Treblinka, at Auschwitz, at Dachau. We're still finding the remains of victims. And there's people out there, oh, it never happened. Really? That's how it happens again. Yes?
First of all, thank you. What you've done for humanity is remarkable, and I don't think people can ever tell you enough how fantastic your generation is for what you've done. Secondly, when you talked about your friendship with the German, did he have an understanding of the scope of what Hitler was doing?
Did your German friend understand about what the Nazis were doing?
Yeah.
He did?
Yeah, he got to the point where, if they said one word against the government, they're going up in a camp. I have a listing here of all the people, the 31,000 that were liberated, and how many from what country, and
It wasn't just
there
the
was,
Jews.
there were
Yeah.
six,
Anybody that wanted
Americans
That's right.
in there.
That's right.
When we liberated them.
That's right.
Maybe those Americans said something or other against the government, made some statement, they wound up, there were 6 of them were Americans.
Yep. It's
So
an amazing
they
story.
had to be very careful.
Yep. I always tell about the Hitler Youth kids that would go to their Hitler Youth meetings in the evening, and they'd come home and have dinner with their parents, and their dad would say, boy, that Hitler sure has a funny mustache. And the kid would go, what? You insult the Fuhrer? He'd go get the police to come arrest his father for insulting Hitler. He'd cart him off to Dachau, and the kid would go, good.
Yeah.
Turn the kids against their own family. Mind-boggling. Yeah.
My dad was in the Armored Maintenance Battalion. They go out and retrieve damaged tanks and half-tracks and things. So he was never in the front lines. I don't know if he ever even killed anybody. He was issued a weapon, but I don't know if he ever got in danger. So did he get that $10 extra a month?
No, most of them didn't.
You had to have the word combat. That's what the requirement.
Some of those guys, $10 a month. Woo! Yeah, that's big money. High-paid killers, yeah. Yeah, amazing, right? Any other questions? Oh, over here, yes.
Patton's Army, my father-in-law was in the 94th Infantry Division, and did you ever intersect with any other Infantry Division?
The
yes.
45th?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, they're
The
following.
94, he was in the 94th.
I'm not sure if the 45th ever was in their same sector. We'd have to
I
do
know
some
he was
research.
part of Patton's Army. They
Yep.
call it the
Third.
tip of the spear.
3rd Army, yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so,
Yep. No, 45th was south of that. They were
Okay.
15th. Yep. Yeah, and again, a family member, if you have any photographs, letters, documents, we want copies. We'll start a binder on them, we'll do the research, find out where he was, put them in our library. It's so great to have that stuff and be able to use it to show kids. It's very important.
we actually took a trip in the year 2000 and we went back